All right, number 9, we go smaller market for you now. Buffalo.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes.
We are running to the podium with this one. We're taking Ed Oliver, man.
Yep, love it.
Yeah, Buffalo needs a pass rusher bad. Let's get one on the interior. The Bills had the 7th fewest sacks in the NFL, had 36 last year. Ed Oliver, transcendent interior penetrator, a guy that John Randall is a guy that I think of just as a Minnesota guy, but Oliver was a guy that was misused in college. Major Applewhite at Houston, they ran a 3-4. They had Oliver at 0 tackle.
Playing nose tackle right over. Right.
They dropped 8 guys every time. They never blitzed. And so, Ed Oliver over the last 3 years had something like 150 more snaps at 0 technique than the next highest guy in this draft class at 0 technique. It was incredible. And every single time, obviously, the offense is going to have blocking numbers every single time.
Yes.
In that scenario when you're only rushing 3 guys. Major Applewhite basically used Ed Oliver as, Ed, you're going to do the entire pass rush for us. And then we're just going to, sort of flood the intermediate sector with bodies or whatever. And teams just ganged up on him. Double, triple teams every single time. Josh, I know you love him. I'll kick it to you.
Well, so Sean McDermott is someone, obviously, that came from the Panthers. And they had Starler Tudele and they had K1 Short. And they really believed in interior disruption. Guess what? Last offseason, Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane signed Starler Tudele.
Right.
And they don't have an interior disruptor now opposite him
because
of Kyle Williams' retirement.
Right.
And Ed Oliver is just, he makes my heart flutter. It's amazing.
You have him ranked 4th overall.
Oh, and I wish I could put him higher, but those guys are even better, just a little bit. But he is someone that just moves differently along that interior,
yes,
right? Like when he's the first one to the football, creates that disruption, which equals production, and allows other people to have that production. But just how he reacts to surprising movements, it looks like a linebacker out there, and he's someone that no matter where he goes, he'll be able to instantly create disruption from the interior.
One of the freakiest athletes in the draft.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. This is why I always argue you got to be a little careful about production because of what Thor said. He was in college playing a position that he has no business playing, and he still was awesome. But at the end of the day, you just got to evaluate the player and the specimen and go, as an NFL team, we're going to use him properly. And you haven't even seen the real guy yet. And, to what all they're saying, he's just twitchy as hell, explosive as hell, has an acceleration like a starting NFL running back, can do a lot of different things. He could play 3 technique. As far as defensive tackle, he could play defensive end for a 4-3 team. And if it was a 3-4 team, I would always go, he could play stand-up outside linebacker. He is that athletic of a guy. There's that kind of versatility there. I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets took him at number 3.
Wow.
I think that, he's that kind of talent. So it is amazing he's on the board here at 9, and that would be amazing for Buffalo.
If Ed's having a bad day, he should just tune in and watch these last 3 or 4 days.
I think we're all man-crushed on Big Ed Oliver, for sure.
At number 10, Denver, anybody making your heart flutter there?
Yeah, I think so. For me, again, I think with Denver, I go down to there's offensive line a little bit, but I don't think that happens. They got Bowles at left tackle. They just gave Jawaan James a lot of money at right tackle. I don't think they're going to go interior O-line here. I've thought about tight end. At the end of the day, their new head coach is Vic Fangio. I think they're going to address defense, and I think this is where Devin Bush is going to go off the board. I just think it makes too much sense. It's a 3-4 scheme. Vic Fangio's the new head coach. He's trying to build the right personnel for this defense. Also, the defense is his baby, just like how an offensive coach wants the offense to do well. Well, a defensive coach wants his defense to be, the star of the show. And I think Devin Bush, although he might not be as good as Devin White or maybe Roquan Smith or either way, I still think this is a really superstar type NFL linebacker who, if I had one issues with his game, hey, he's a little undersized, and when the run game comes right at him, can he always get off blocks, or sometimes he can get swallowed by big guards or whatever it may be, but it's the speed, the physicality, the acceleration, the quickness. He is a special ball-hawking middle linebacker that I think will fit within that defense.
Josh, what do you see as the biggest difference between Devin White and Devin Bush?
Oh, that's a fair question. I don't think that there is much of a difference. I would say that Devin White, to me, is just a little bit better in coverage, and you've seen him play against speed more often, to me, in SEC defenses each and every Saturday. Quickly to your point with Vic Fangio, though, we keep bringing up Roquan Smith. He was part of his defense last year with Chicago.
Right.
And Evan Silva in our Team Needs series wrote this: from Patrick Willis to Navarro Bowman to Chris Borland to Danny Trevathan, Jarrell Freeman, Roquan Smith in Chicago. Vic Fangio has a history of needing linebackers because he knows that they make his secondary, his defense, his front four fast.
Right.
And Devin Bush certainly offers athleticism just like Devin White.
Right.
And he plays bigger than he is, right? I mean, the kid plays angry, squares people up, comes in and blasts people, and he's smaller, but he brings the power because, it's force times mass. Or
well, yeah, his legs and ass. That should. If you want to know where the power comes from, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
This isn't a science table.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to it. And I think this is the thing that jumped out to me, the difference between Devin White and Devin Bush. I thought Devin White was a little bit better in the mosh pit of in between the tackles run game, whether it was taking on blocks or getting off blocks or even avoiding like lead blockers and then getting around them to make the tackle. To me, he was just a little bit better than Devin Bush in that category. That's the separation. But both awesome players, and Broncos should be happy to get Devin Bush.
I would agree. Where I like Bush a bit more is with instincts, right? Because sometimes White's feet get stuck in the mud for a second, like on misdirection or stuff like that when he gets confused, and that can play down his athleticism. Bush is a guy that seems like he knows where the ball's going every single time, and he's going in to hit you.
Yeah. But they're both outstanding prospects.
Yeah.
And again, there's a
absolutely.
massive cliff. Like, we might not see another inside linebacker in this class after the two Devins until the third round.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a good possibility.
I heard the name Evan Silva and team needs. Want to remind everybody, Josh and Evan Silva will take a team-by-team look at the biggest needs of every franchise and which prospects may be able to fill those holes. You can go to rotoworld.com/ Pardon me. I'm going to start that again. You can go to rotoworld.com/NFL team needs.
That's okay. We got to rag on you a little bit. You're not perfect. It's okay. You're allowed to have a flub here and there.
Right?
Right.
There was the slash, and I took a breath.
Hey, you're next to me.
It was all downhill from there.
You're always going to look smarter than you really are if you're next to me. Don't worry.
Don't think that's an accident. They get to sit next to you every time. All right. Tell me that one more time, guys. Okay, there we go. Recap 1 through 8. Couple of quarterbacks off the board. 1, Kyler Murray, and at number 6, Dwayne Haskins. And a nice mix of offense and defense. A lot of defense there, 1 through 8.
And I think that's the way it'll be. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of defense. Right? Yes.
I'm surprised you haven't seen more.
Yep. Ed Oliver, 9. Devin Bush, 10.
And
all
that
right.
brings us 11 usually follows 10.
It
right,
does.
Chris? Yeah,
it does. At least in my book.
Bringing us to the Bengals. And Josh, that's your team.
Oh, okay. I'm going to pose the panel this question. Name me one signing that the Bengals made this offseason.
Oh, well, I can remember they re-signed Preston Brown.
Sure.
Was that a true free agent?
That was good recall there, Chris.
Let's say new player, because there basically aren't any.
Yeah.
John Miller, B.W. Webb, and Kerry Wynn were their notable additions this offseason.
That's standard for them, though, right?
Right. They don't spend much in free agency. But that's also a team that, is not good and has a new head coach and Andy Dalton at quarterback. I would love to go with a quarterback here. Maybe even a Drew Lock, because I asked my friend Joe Goodberry, who's very connected with the Bengals and hovers around their organization, knows every year what they're doing, and he thinks that they like Drew Lock more than Dwayne Haskins. I would also have loved a linebacker, because as we know, Preston Smith and the linebackers have been super slow for years.
Vontaze Burficts, yep, right.
But I'm going to add to that offensive line. I'm going to give him Jonah Williams out of Alabama.
Okay.
Obviously, Jonah Williams played left tackle for the Crimson Tide. Jonah Williams probably won't play left tackle for the Bengals because they have a solid one in Corey Glenn. They drafted Billy Price in the first round, I believe, just last year.
Yes.
But outside of that, their offensive line is trash. It's garbage. So if you really want to succeed inside of structure, and Zach Taylor comes from the LA Rams, right? For 2 years, they've had one of the best offensive lines and healthy offensive lines in the NFL.
Yep.
And his goal will be to create a system to succeed for Andy Dalton. And in order to do that, you have to have a good offensive line. And I think Jonah Williams can come in and play either guard or right tackle immediately.
Yeah.
Love the pick. Yeah. A tremendous prospect.
Can you see a scenario where an offensive lineman doesn't come off the board until 11?
We just did.
I mean, he was your first one.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe the only other team, you mentioned the Lions and you mentioned the Jaguars. Those are kind of the only ones, but we're going to see maybe a wealth of them go past here. But I think part of that is, I think teams will have different players up there at the top of the tackle spot, either Jonah Williams or Jawaan Taylor or Andre Dillard.
Yeah. The only thing I'll push back with, I think Jonah Williams is a guard all the way. I don't think he can play tackle in the NFL. I don't think he's a big enough human as far as being able to anchor in there. The first time Khalil Mack ran at Jonah Williams at tackle, he's going to end up in whatever quarterback's lap is playing quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. That would scare me. I do think he's a true guard. I think he fits there. Listen, I'm a little down on Jonah Williams, I think, than the rest of the public. I think he's good. He's an NFL starting guard. I think he's a first-round pick.
Is it just the size thing?
And I just wasn't overwhelmed with the film. To me, just the overall player itself, He's really good, don't get me wrong, but I didn't see a dominant top 11 pick type of player. I thought he would have been, I think for my money, he'd be a 20 to 32 type of guy. Again, I think some of the success, too, you got to be careful with Alabama O-linemen. They're very well coached. There's a lot of good players around them. He's a good player, don't get me wrong. I got that. I just feel like this is a little high in my opinion.
And I think this might be a fair time to talk about best player available and this line that gets thrown out every single year because it's a complete myth. You know, it really should be best grade available because no matter consciously or subconsciously, need is factored into a final grade. And if I'm looking at my depth chart and I know they gave him some money and I see Bobby Hart as my right tackle, I'm taking offensive lineman pretty damn early, you know? And Jonah Williams, to me, again, it depends on what your evaluation style and what your biases are, but I think Jonah Williams is a solid plug-and-play player at a multitude of spots.
Okay, offensive line at 11, Jonah Williams to the Bengals at 12. The Packers and Thor, that's you.
We're going to start our run. I'm going to take Jawaan Taylor here. For the Packers,
Ooh, interesting with the Packers.
Yeah, I think they want to go best available at tight end, offensive line, or front seven. Hawkinson's already off the board, so we can't take a tight end here. So we're going to go in the trenches. I think you want to go Taylor because you have to wait until 30 with their next pick, and I do think there could be a run here. The Packers are looking at Bulaga is his contract's going to expire. Mediocre player as is. They have the bust Jason Spriggs. His contract's going to expire as well. They could use help at guard. They could use help at tackle. Taylor, if you want, the first year he could play guard. If you want to play him outside the first year, it'd be great. Bulaga's a free agent after this year. You can move him outside after that.
And a lot of people say, oh, look, this was best player available because, it's not addressing immediate need. Teams are also, as Chris knows, looking towards 2020 needs, right? And replacing overpriced, overpaid, declining players, and some might view Brian Bulaga as that. Then Jawaan Taylor, I guess, makes sense here. I think Noah Fant is even a possibility, though, at 12.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked there either. The Packers, it could go a lot of different ways. Not in love with Jawaan Taylor.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Me either.
You don't like his offensive
I'm not.
lineman.
I like other ones that we'll talk about later. I don't want to give up my cards yet. I'll be looking. But Jawaan Taylor, I see the athletic ability. I get that. I think there is a little bit of a physicality, power part that I don't love. And, again, I always get to this, and I think a lot of teams have missed this at the tackle position. They get in love with the footwork aspect of these players, but I think the reason you've seen like the Jermaine Ifedis and the Cedric Ogbuehi's not always work in the first round, they got great athleticism, but it goes back to the ability to anchor.
Functional strength.
Yeah, and can you stop the best pass rushers who can go speed to power when they decide, I'm not going to beat you with speed, I'm going to put my foot in the ground and throw my arm in your chest and drive you back to the quarterback. That's what would worry me about Jawaan Taylor. You can learn at that and get better, and he'll get bigger, but I guess I'm just not as high on him as the rest of the world.
Speaking of high on him, Josh, you have Andre Dillard, number 7.
And we'll get to
overall at
Andre
Washington
Dillard.
State.
Yeah.
Would you have put him in that spot?
I guess it depends on what position you want them to play, because Andre Dillard has basically only played left tackle. Jawaan Taylor's basically only played right tackle. Just quickly closing this out with Taylor, it is amazing how much he's changed his body, okay? Back, and I know you're about this, Chris.
380 coming out of high school.
He was 380 pounds coming out of high school, and during this draft process, he's basically formed a six-pack. So if I can get on that workout plan, Jawaan Taylor,
Just send it on over.
And the kid's strong as an ox. I mean, when SEC edge rushers would touch him, it was like touching an electric fence sometimes. The power would just zap out of him. The kid's strong as an ox.
Got long arms.
He does, yeah.
Which is always a positive for the tackle position, too.
Yeah, and I think, because I like Dillard more than Taylor as well. But, for the Packers, needing the guard, needing the right tackle, he's a better fit for them, I think. Where, as Josh was saying, Dillard's earmarked for left tackle.
All right, Chris is getting ready, I can tell, because his pick is next.
Yep.
Dolphins 13.
Well, this is the Dolphins. I mean, again, we could be in the quarterback conversation here. I don't think that's going to be it. I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's 3 positions. It's quarterback, it's offensive line, maybe a tackle, or they need somebody that's a difference maker on their front 7,
but
too.
you like Locke more than Haskins, correct?
I do like Locke more than Haskins, yes.
He's there?
I know he's there. It's. I think they're going to wait another year.
I agree.
I think they too. I don't know why. I just feel like the stars are lining up that way.
And Justin Herbert.
Whether it's Tua
Next
or
best
Justin
better.
Herbert, exactly right. I think they got Ryan Fitzpatrick, so basically they could say, we don't have to take a quarterback. We're not desperate. I think this is where Rashan Gary goes off the board. I'm going to take Rashan Gary from the University of Michigan, who to me, is one of the better athletes in this whole draft. I mean, he is a kind of a freaky athlete. Now, the big thing is, and Paul, you've been on the podcast where we've talked about it a little bit, it's productions, it's sack rate, and things like that where people look at it and go, well, it's just not that sexy. How could it be one of the best defensive linemen and only have 3.5 sacks? All of those type of things. Well, extremely versatile. I mean, the guy ran 4.5 at 277 pounds. That's like insane in the freaking membrane, okay, to do that. Yeah. And he's bendable, he's pliable. He can take on double teams. He can get off blocks. And again, this is where a little bit like Ed Oliver, where I just want to go, it's not all about production all the times. To me, I have a stat. You've heard me say this. I call it, I'm going to say my first swear, everybody, so cover your ears. The play-up stat, okay?
It's a good one.
Rashan Gary is amazing at ruining the design of a play. He might not get the sack or the tackle, but he made the play a mess to where somebody else gets the stat. But really, the root of the problem was Rashan Gary, and I think that's his value there. And I think that for Brian Flores, defensive coach, once again, coming from New England, I think this could be his Trey Flowers type of player for this defense.
Outside to inside type.
Yeah.
And honestly, his best pass rushing success might be from the inside, but he also offers just this amazing athletic profile.
Do you think he can get big enough to move inside of the 3 technique?
I don't know if you have to. Like, I think 276.
He's as big as Michael Bennett.
Right. And moving
like
him
that kind of guy, right?
In designated pass rushing situations, I think it works perfectly. But 94th percentile athlete, I just don't know if we saw it all the time. And I think that's fine. You know, maybe he can learn from his teammates. Maybe he can learn from his coaches. But if I'm looking for pass rushers, I care about athleticism because it gives them a ceiling and an instant leg up. And Rashan Gary offers that. And this is a great spot for him at 13.
He seems kind of like a polarizing figure.
He is, because he didn't do much.
I have
you like him?
No, I don't. I have a lot of questions about Rashan Gary.
How dare you? What do you think? You're some Avenger or something?
He's a guy with an athletic profile and a body of an edge rusher, but he wants to play like an interior guy. He could win with athleticism on the outside or with a plan, but what he wants to do is bull rush every single time.
Right.
And so then, you think, well, if he gets in and a great coaching staff knows how to use him, all that kind of stuff. But he played with Jim Harbaugh, right? And Don Brown, who's one of the best defensive coordinators in college football. If they couldn't figure out how to use Rashan Gary, I wonder if the NFL will. Chase Winovich, another edge rusher, an edge player in this class.
From Michigan.
Exactly. Outplayed Rashan Gary throughout their, from the 3 years that Rashan Gary was on campus. Winovich was a better player throughout. And it wouldn't shock me if that continued to be the case for the next decade.
New England's not into pass rushers, so remember that. I don't think they're looking at him going, oh, we want you to come off the edge and get 15 sacks a year. Nobody's ever done that in New England, right? And again, this is New England South. Again, that's the same type of thing where, I think they're looking for the versatility guy, the guy who can set the edge in the run game, be physical, dominate tight ends, dominate the strong side tackle, and then, to my point, I see Michael Bennett, right, a guy that can be incredibly disruptive, and then on situations where you go, ooh, they might pass, let's get a nickel situation, he could play 3 technique and I think be a handful one-on-one for guards. I understand the concerns, I get that, and I know some teams are concerned the fact that he's, bringing out his own agent label and all those type of things too. That doesn't necessarily help his look.
Did you have your own logo coming out of school? Because he has his own logo.
No, of course not. You don't deserve your own logo until you get to like Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers status. Then you can have a logo.
Maybe you would have gone higher than 97 and gone ahead of
some better branding.
Dave Ragone.
Yes. Yeah, thanks. Add some more, fuel to the fire. Thanks a lot, Paul.
I wasn't going to go there. It seemed to fit in with it.
But you did go there.
It just seemed to fit in with that.
Yeah.
At least you got picked.
Yes, I know. It was torture and awesome all at the same time.
He also wasn't a throwing quarterback at the combine, Paul.
Exactly. See, he was quite a few rungs up the ladder. There you go. The guy down here. All right, 14. The Falcons, Josh, it's yours.
Yeah, so the Falcons are super excited that Brian Burns is on the board, edge rusher out of FSU. And I know the Falcons have selected edge rushers quite a bit in the past. I mean, you have Vic Beasley, who's a first-round pick. You have Tack McKinley, who was a first-round pick. But, I mean, if any team values explosiveness, athleticism along that front seven, and especially at that edge rushing spot, it is Brian Burns. And this is a player who, like we talked about, has to really try hard to stay at that 250-pound range. I don't think it really matters. I think he can be active and really play the run on the way to the quarterback, and you can line him up in a variety of alignments, standing up, 3-point stance, all that good stuff. And he's someone that can really get after the quarterback and offers a super high ceiling.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, the other thing they would think about is maybe getting an interior guy. But if Brian Burns falls down here, you have to consider it. I mean, this is a guy who could be a transcendent pass rusher in the NFL. I do prefer Sweat to him, in a tiebreaker just because of the run defense thing, but Brian Burns is absolutely a better pass rusher, and that's where the NFL's going.
Yeah. He is a special pass rusher. I mean, he's got special movements altogether. He's very much like Leonard Floyd, who was drafted at number 6 to me for the Chicago Bears a few years ago. I mean, he could stand up, but his bend around the edge, his first step, his explosion,
spin move,
right? And I think he'll even get better in the NFL when you get around NFL coaching and you're living football and you start to learn hand fighting and other moves and where to place your arms and things like that. Yeah, Brian Burns has a chance to be something. And he certainly fits their scheme as far as what they want. I mean, again, this is a Seattle scheme in Atlanta. Dan Quinn came from Seattle. This could be, their Cliff Averill when he was in Seattle. That kind of guy to come off the edge and scare quarterbacks.
Speaking of quarterbacks, Redskins at 15.
Oh, baby.
Is sitting there.
You read my mind, but we're not going Drew Lock. We're going Daniel Jones.
Oh,
we have heard
15.
At 15. We have heard all this smoke that Daniel Jones is headed towards the top 15. There's a mystery team that likes Daniel Jones. I tend to buy it. This is stuff that hasn't gone away. The NFL likes Daniel Jones more than the media does. And I think there might be reasons for it, right? Like, the one thing that Daniel Jones struggled with, and he really struggled with it in college, was throwing deep. But Duke had a terrible offensive line. They had terrible receivers. And Daniel Jones played last year with a fractured collarbone. I think a lot of people don't realize this. He fractured his collarbone early in September, fights back, 3 weeks later, he's back from, and they didn't have anyone to throw it deep anyway.
Right.
The offensive line stunk. He's a big athletic kid. He's going to run. You get a Josh Allen type, running presence out of the quarterback there. And he's great in the short and intermediate area.
Do you like Daniel Jones?
No.
You certainly pitched him like you do.
Well, I think there's reasons that he could go in the top 15. I think there's reasons that a team could fall in love with Daniel Jones. It would not be my pick. It would absolutely not be my pick. But reading the tea leaves with Washington, I think they're zeroing in on a quarterback. If they cannot complete a trade for Josh Rosen, I think they're going to be looking for one here. And I think there's reason to believe that they would prefer Daniel Jones over Drew Lock, especially with what we've heard about the top 15 stuff.
And Washington's in an awful spot at the quarterback situation, right? They gave Alex Smith a ton of money with guaranteed money, and now they're basically stuck to that contract. And that's why Case Keenum's there and Colt McCoy's coming off injury. I mean, they will add a rookie quarterback, or one on a rookie contract, I should say, at some point. I just can't see how anyone likes Daniel Jones outside of him playing under David Cutcliffe and working inside of structure and hitting multiple levels of the field.
Yeah, you know my thoughts. I'm not a big fan of the guy either. I don't think he's a first-round talent. And I never like saying this stuff because I know he's a fine young man and he's worked hard and he's doing all the right things. And it does not make me proud to sit up here and be a 38-year-old man talking about some 21-year-old kid who's doing everything right to further his career. But from what I've seen on the field, I just want to go, well, all right, the first round, we've already said it a few times, it's about special traits, eliteness. What do you bring to the table? And I think Daniel Jones, all the eliteness he brings is to the meeting room, not necessarily to the field. I don't see an above-average NFL starting quarterback arm. He's a good athlete as far as when he has a straightaway lane to run, he's a good athlete. But I don't think he's quick in the pocket or can make people miss and get outside of the pocket and make throws on the run like that. So that bothers me.
And he is tough. He'll hang in the pocket and throw against disruption.
Yes.
But a lot of times he will stare down a receiver on outside breaking routes and allow corners just to read that.
It drives me crazy when we talk about last year we beat accuracy to death with a Josh Allen, and then here we have a guy who's 3 percentage points better, who had basically a professional offensive coordinator around here going, here's a wide open completion for 5. Here's a wide open completion for 5. And he was still 59%. I wrote in my notes at one point, I've seen 700 yards and 7 touchdowns, and I haven't said wow about a throw yet.
A single time.
And that to me does not say first round. I'm interested too where this Daniel Jones conversation goes, because it has caught hype. I know also, I'll say this, guys, I know people, I would think Drew Lock is more their cup of tea because he's more athletic. I know the Gruden family. They like the Alex Smiths type, the Colt McCoy type, the guy who can move and run and create on his own a little bit to a degree. So I don't know. But Daniel Jones is one of the enigmas of the first round for me.
Could it be that he's just acing the meetings? Could it be acing the psychoanalysis
That's
test?
definitely what it is.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that my friends tell me is he's killing the intangible stuff. And that's when, to me, when you get into bust category, when you're not talking, the first thing out of your mouth is not talent on the field. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but it just, when you're not talking about talent on the field and the first thing you're talking about is the other stuff, that's a red flag to me.
Yeah. I like everything about Daniel Jones outside of he didn't throw deep in college, which is a huge thing, right? A huge thing. But just like Hakeem Butler with drops, I think there's contextual reasons that could explain why the deep game wasn't a part of his game that goes beyond his physical skill set.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it does, but I'm saying that it could be argued.
And Josh, you don't even have Daniel Jones in your top 50.
It's not my top 100.
And not your top 100. I don't have the 51 through 100.
I know.
But
I don't blame you.
I take your word for it. And Daniel Jones is your 6th rated quarterback. You dropped him to 7.
Yeah, he was. I think he. Oh no, you're right. It's 6. It's 6. I was wrong. Sorry, I can't count.
You got to tell me these things.
But no, you're right. He's 6. He's 6. Yes.
You have him behind Ryan Finley, behind Jarrett Stidham.
Yes. Yeah. I think they have more physical upside than Daniel Jones. Again, every time I hear Daniel Jones, it's David Cutcliffe came from Duke.
Right.
Blah blah, and that's not always a good thing for me.
We've been waiting for the next best compliment or a better one. It just hasn't seemed to come along.
Right.
All right, 17, Carolina Panthers. That's you, Chris.
Chris, can I interrupt you here?
Please do.
Because the Panthers have given me highs and very, very lows.
Yep.
Okay?
Right.
And this is your hometown team.
I grew up as a 7-year-old going to Ben Erickson Stadium down in Clemson, actually their first season. And please, Chris Simms, give them Andre Dillard, the left tackle out of Washington State.
I will deliver on some
you.
of what you want,
No,
okay?
please.
Some of you what you want. I really like Andre Dillard, but there's somebody I like better than him. Yes, I'm going with Cody Ford out of Oklahoma, who I look at as the best tackle in the draft. He is the man. And let me just make sure I pull up his measurables because I want to talk about this guy because I like him very much. No, so again, Cody Ford, when you look at him overall, skill set, he's 328 pounds, okay? We've talked a lot about these offensive tackles. First of all, I think Carolina believes in size on the offensive line. I think that's the kind of coach Ron Rivera is. They want big guys. Now, Dillard's awesome, but to me, where I look at Cody Ford, the size of the human being, okay, at 6'5", 328, that's always a positive, all right? And then, okay, is he as athletic as a Dillard or a Jawaan Taylor?
No.
No, he's not. But he's still plenty athletic to stop any speed rusher that comes around the edge in the NFL. So for his little lack of maybe athleticism compared to the other guys, okay, it's a little less, but his ability to play power, I think, is way greater than the other guys. And again, I don't think he's going to have any issue, whether it's Jadeveon Clowney, Khalil Mack. He is going to be able to go, okay, oh, you want the power rush? No problem. Raw, stay right there. That's where I love. To me, I see Jason Peters. I see a more athletic Trent Brown, who just got the most money an offensive lineman's ever got. I think this kid is a franchise left tackle who has no weakness. This is my guy to me right here.
It's nice that you're looking at me because on the
I don't
other
want to
side,
look to them. I know
Josh is
they're
looking like I look when I'm not agreeing with my wife.
Chris, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Oh, sorry.
Okay?
Sorry.
And the reason being is Cody Ford's a right tackle. He played right tackle at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Maybe he can move to left tackle, but the Panthers already have a wealth of right tackles. Taylor Moton's best spot is on the right
He's
side.
going to left tackle. And, okay.
That's a projection. Meanwhile, you have Andre Dillard, who has 900-something
You're overdoing
side.
this. Listen, but you're overdoing this. Again, with good athletes, like I was capable of driving to the right. I'm a lefty. I could drive to the right in basketball. I could do it. I can do it. I can.
Could you do it well?
I could. Yes, I can. Yeah. You better be worried about my right. He's going to be able to, for a top-tier big man dancing bear athlete, for him to go this way compared to this way is not going to be as a big adjustment as everybody always tries to make it out to be.
I think it takes and I'm no NFL player, but just from listening to Jeff Schwartz and listening to Joe Thomas, it can take about 2 months to make that transition.
Sure.
And maybe he can, or maybe they move Taylor Moton to the left side. I just think that even in looking at individual evaluations, Andre Dillard is an outstanding prospect.
And you have him ranked 7th overall, and you have Ford all the way down to 29.
I think I'm the highest out there in anyone. than Andre Dillard. And I do like Cody Ford, don't get me wrong.
I like Andre Dillard too.
And Andre Dillard isn't much of a run blocker, okay? Like, that's not going to be his calling card. But to me...
See, that's where Carolina, I look at them and go, they're going to run. That's where I tossed around these two names right there.
I hear you.
You
just picked the wrong one.
I err on size. That's all I'll say. Go ahead. I want to hear what you got to say about Cody Ford.
I think Josh is too emotionally invested in this one.
I like Cody Ford a lot. I am with Josh in preferring Dillard, though, and I'm quite happy because I picked for the Vikings here in two spots. And
I should probably figure out who I'm taking.
if they get down there, I'll be taking Dillard. But I like Cody Ford a lot. Like, I'm not, this is no indictment about Cody Ford, and Cody Ford can do a whole bunch of different things, right? I mean, he can play a minimum 3 positions in the NFL, and if he can swing left tackle, he can play 4.
Right.
He can do a lot of different things. And one thing that I really, really appreciate about Cody Ford last season was that, before he was playing guard, Orlando Brown leaves, you kick Evans over to the left side, and you kick him, Ford outside, and he played tremendous. Pass blocker, run blocker, all around. Good player. I think there's ceiling left there. There's untapped potential as well.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.